two independent teams, two parallel protocols, both running in the same calendar year, both producing substantial documented returns from the silver futures market using the same underlying technique. The combined evidence from these two experiments alone established associative remote viewing as a working method capable of generating real money in real markets under controlled conditions. Welcome to the Reality Revolution. I'm your host, Brian Scott, and today I can't wait to discuss the CIA's method for financial manifestation. As the CIA advanced in its remote viewing practices, it began to come up with ways to create money from these practices. And there's so much we can unpack from this that we can utilize in our own lives. So let me paint the picture. The room is small. The walls are bare. A single desk lamp burns at the corner of a wooden table. Outside the window, the November rain of Northern California falls steadily against the glass. Keith Haray sits in a chair facing the wall. His eyes are closed. His breathing is slowed. A blank sheet of paper rests on his lap. A pen is held loosely between his fingers. The year is 1982. The month is November. The location is a small office in Menlo Park, California, leased by a newly formed consulting firm called Delphi Associates. Across the room, a man named Russell Targ watches him. Targ has spent the past 10 years working as a senior research physicist at Stanford Research Institute, conducting classified experiments for the Central Intelligence Agency, the Defense Intelligence Agency, the National Security Agency, and Army Intelligence. The experiments concerned a capacity of the human nervous system the official Western scientific consensus has spent the past century refusing to acknowledge as real. The capacity allows specific trained operators to perceive information about distant locations, sealed envelopes, hidden objects, and events occurring in places the operator has no physical access to. The capacity is called remote viewing. Over the decade of his work at SRI, Targ has documented hundreds of successful remote viewing sessions. Trained operators have located downed Soviet bombers in the African jungle. They've described the interior layouts of classified facilities behind the Iron Curtain. They have read the contents of sealed envelopes inside vaults in distant cities. The results have been verified, replicated, and quietly classified at levels that have kept them hidden from the public for the entirety of the program's existence. Targ has now left SRI. He has founded Delphi Associates with Harari and a businessman named Anthony White. The purpose of Delphi is to apply the methods developed at SRI to a target the CIA has been forbidden from approaching for ethical reasons. The target is the silver futures market. Within the past 2 months, Targ and Harari have conducted 8 separate sessions of the protocol they are about to perform again. Each of the 8 previous sessions has correctly predicted the direction of the silver futures market 5 days in advance of the actual market close. Each successful prediction has been executed as a trade. The combined trades have so far returned approximately $120,000 in profit to the investor backing the experiment, and this is in the 80s. Tonight, Harari is about to perform the 9th session. Targ holds in his hand a sealed envelope. Inside the envelope is a piece of paper bearing the name of an object. The object has been selected by a third party who has no involvement in the current session and no contact with either Harari or Targ. The object has been associated in advance with one of 2 possible outcomes. Outcome A is that the silver futures market will close higher on the following Monday. Outcome B is that the market will close lower. 2 different objects have been pre-assigned to the 2 outcomes by the third party. The envelope Targ holds contains the name of whichever object corresponds to the actual market outcome that is yet to occur. Harari, in the chair, knows none of this. He knows only that he is about to describe an object he will be shown at a specific time the following Monday. after the silver futures market closes. Targ speaks softly. He asks Harari to describe the object he will be holding in his hands on Monday at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Harari begins to describe. He says the object is curved. He says the surface carries a smooth quality. He says the color appears to be a deep saturated green. He says the object fits comfortably in the palm of a human hand. He sketches the rough outline of what he is seeing on the paper resting on his lap. He continues describing the object across the next 12 minutes, adding details about the texture, weight, smell, and the visual impressions of small dark markings along one curved edge. When Harari has finished, Targ thanks him and closes the session. On the following Monday afternoon, the silver futures market closes. The direction of the close has been determined by the forces neither Targ nor Harari had any access to. The third party, who pre-assigned the two objects to the two possible outcomes, now reveals which outcome occurred. The object corresponding to that outcome is brought into a room with Harari. Harari is shown the object. The object is a small green ceramic frog with dark markings along the curve of its back. The object matches Harari's description from the previous Wednesday with such precision that the match has been ruled by the judging protocol an unambiguous hit. The trade has been correctly predicted. The investors' funds have been positioned according to the prediction. The Monday close has confirmed the position. The 9th successful trade has been completed. Across 9 consecutive Wednesdays in the autumn of 1982, this small team in this small office in Menlo Park has predicted with perfect accuracy the direction of the silver futures market 5 days in advance of the actual close. The combined profits have exceeded $120,000 in 1982, equivalent in modern purchasing power to $400,000 today. The trades have been documented. The protocol has been written up. The results have been published in the academic literature on parapsychology, and the financial trade press has covered the story. And almost nobody outside a small circle of researchers, traders, and intelligence operatives has heard anything about it. What follows is the documented history of the protocol Targ and Harari used, the broader research program from which the protocol emerged, the specific applications that have produced documented financial returns across the last 40 years, and the path through which any reader willing to undertake the work can begin developing the same capacity in their own nervous system. Now begin with the broader context. The remote viewing program, operated by the United States intelligence community, ran continuously from 1972 through 1995. The program was housed initially at SRI under the contract of the Central Intelligence Agency. After a series of organizational changes and budget transfers, the program was eventually relocated to Science Applications International Corporation and then to Fort Meade, where it operated under the codename Stargate until its public termination by the CIA in 1995. Across the 23 years of operational existence, the program documented thousands of remote viewing sessions performed by a small cadre of trained operators. The operators included Ingo Swann, the New York artist who developed the foundational training protocols, Joe McMoneagle, the Army intelligence officer who was assigned viewer number 001 and continued operational work for decades, Pat Price, whose accuracy on classified targets was so consistent that the CIA suspected he was using conventional intelligence sources, Hal Puthoff, the senior scientist who managed the SRI program through most of its existence, Russell Targ, his collaborator and the eventual founder of Delphi Associates. The program produced thousands of pages of documentation across 2.5 decades. The documentation includes session transcripts, target evaluations, statistical analysis, training manuals, and operational reports. Most of this material was declassified in 1995 and 1996. The declassified files have been digitized and are available through the CIA's reading room as of 2017, when a coordinated public release made over 12 million pages of internal CIA records searchable online. What the program demonstrated across its operational life was that trained remote viewers could produce information about distant, hidden, or future targets at levels of accuracy that significantly exceeded chance. The statistical significance of the aggregate results has been confirmed by multiple independent reviews. The most rigorous of these reviews, conducted by Jessica Utz, a professor of statistics at the University of California, Davis, concluded that the evidence for remote viewing as a genuine phenomenon was overwhelming, and that the program's result satisfied conventional scientific standards for demonstration of a previously unknown human capacity. The program ended officially in 1995. The capacities the program documented have continued operating in the hands of the original viewers and their students across the 30 years since. The financial applications of these capacities have continued developing across the same period, and nobody's talking about it. Several operational successes from the early years of the program deserve specific mention because they established the foundation upon which the financial applications were later built. In 1973, Pat Price was given a set of geographic coordinates inside the Soviet Union. The coordinates had been selected by a CIA analyst who refused to disclose what was located at the target site. Price entered the receptive state, reported the coordinates aloud, and proceeded to describe in detail a large industrial complex with massive metal cranes operating on rails, a unique gantry structure, and underground research facilities engaged in classified weapons development. The site Price had been targeting was the Semi-Planck nuclear test facility in Kazakhstan. The CIA confirmed every major detail of his description against satellite imagery and classified intelligence reports. The session was reviewed by senior agency officials. The decision was made to expand the program. So in 1979, Joe McMoneagle was assigned to locate a downed Soviet Tu-22 bomber that had crashed in the African jungle. The aircraft had carried sensitive equipment to the United States military, wished to recover before the Soviet recovery teams reached the wreckage. McMoneagle was given only the general region of the suspected crash. He produced a detailed sketch of the aircraft's location, including specific topographical features and the relationship of the wreckage to nearby rivers. The recovery team located the aircraft within several miles of the coordinates McMoneagle had identified. In 1981, Ingo Swann was given the task of remote viewing the planet Jupiter as part of a research session. Swann reported that Jupiter had a thin ring system surrounding the planet, a detail the conventional astronomical consensus had failed to anticipate. Several months later, the Voyager spacecraft transmitted images confirming that Jupiter did indeed possess a previously unknown ring system. The session had been cited across the literature as an example of the program's ability to produce accurate information about targets the program had no conventional intelligence access to. These operational successes established the foundation. The capacity worked. The capacity could be applied to specific practical problems, and it produced information no conventional intelligence framework had been able to deliver. The financial applications that followed across the 1980s built directly upon this established foundation. The breakthrough that made financial application possible has a specific name. The breakthrough is called Associative Remote Viewing, abbreviated as ARV. The technique was developed in the late 70s by Stephen Schwartz, a researcher who had been working in parallel with the SRI program through an independent organization called the Mobius Society. Schwartz had spent the years between 1977 and 1980 conducting the most ambitious archaeological applications of remote viewing ever attempted. His team used trained viewers to locate ancient sites in the eastern harbor of Alexandria, Egypt, that had been submerged for over 2,000 years. The viewers described in detail the locations of Cleopatra's palace, the Timonium of Mark Antony, the foundations of the lighthouse of Pharos, and a buried structure outside the ancient city of Maria. Excavation teams working from the viewers' descriptions located each of the sites. A combined French-Egyptian archaeological expedition working 16 years later, in 1995, independently confirmed every one of the locations Schwartz's viewers had identified through remote viewing alone. The Alexandria project established something important. Remote viewing could be applied to specific practical targets and produce verifiable physical results. The question that remained was whether the same capacity could be turned toward targets that involved future events rather than presently existing locations. Schwartz believed the capacity could be extended. The problem he encountered was that viewers attempting to describe future events directly with no intermediate target tended to contaminate their perceptions with their own conscious expectations, hopes, and analyses. The pure signal of the future event became distorted by the viewer's surface mind in ways the perception of present tense locations had avoided. The solution Schwartz developed was elegant. Rather than asking the viewer to describe the future event directly, Schwartz pre-assigned a specific physical object to each possible outcome of the event. The viewer was then asked to describe the object he would be shown at a specified time after the event had occurred. The viewer perceived the future object he would receive as feedback. The judges then matched the viewer's description against the two pre-assigned objects and selected the closer match. The closer match indicated which outcome had occurred. The viewer never attempted to perceive the abstract market data, the team's interpretation of the data, or the unfolding events themselves. The viewer perceived only a concrete physical object he would hold in his hand at a known time in the future. The technique used a known future moment as the anchor point and worked backward from that moment to deliver information about the outcome that had determined which object would be shown. Schwartz called this method associative remote viewing because the viewer perceived an object associated with the outcome rather than the outcome itself. The technique solved the contamination problem. Trained viewers could now produce reliable information about future events through the indirect route of describing the future feedback object. Targ and Harari applied this exact method in the silver trades of 1982. Hal Puthoff applied a parallel version of the method also in 1982, predicting the daily outcome of silver futures contracts across 30 consecutive days using 7 different viewers and a consensus judging protocol. Puthoff's trades netted approximately $250,000 in profit for the investor backing his work, of which Puthoff's 10% share funded the establishment of a new Waldorf school in California. 2 independent teams, 2 parallel protocols, both running in the same calendar year, both producing substantial documented returns from the silver futures market using the same underlying technique. The combined evidence from these 2 experiments alone established associative remote viewing as a working method capable of generating real money in real markets under controlled conditions. Walk through the protocol step by step. The method has been documented in dozens of academic papers and several books written by the original researchers. The steps are public. The protocol is reproducible by any team willing to apply the necessary discipline. Step 1 is the selection of the target event. The target must be a future event with a discrete verifiable outcome. The price of silver closing higher or lower on a specific Monday. The winner of a specific football game. The outcome of a specific roulette spin. The event must be binary or discretely enumerated, with each possible outcome receiving its own pre-assigned object. Step 2 is the selection of the feedback objects. A third party, isolated from the viewer and the judges, selects one distinct physical object for each possible outcome. The object should be vivid, sensory, and substantially different from one another. A ceramic frog and a polished steel sphere. A bouquet of fresh flowers and a leather-bound book. A bowl of warm soup and a smooth river stone. The differences between the objects should be large enough that the viewer's descriptions will fall clearly toward one object rather than the other. Step 3 is the viewing session. The viewer enters the receptive state through whatever method his training has established. He receives the prompting, describes the object you will be holding in your hands at a specific time after the event has resolved. He begins to perceive and describes whatever sensory impressions arise: shape, color, texture, smell, sound. The session continues for as long as the viewer is producing fresh perceptual data. Step 4 is the judging. Independent judges who have no knowledge of which outcome will occur compare the viewer's description against both pre-assigned objects. The judges select the closer match. The closer match indicates the predicted outcomes of the event. Step 5 is the action. The team executes whatever action the prediction has indicated. The trade is placed. The bet is made. The decision is committed. Step 6 is the feedback. After the event is resolved and the actual outcome has been determined, the viewer is shown the object corresponding to the actual outcome. The viewer holds the object, examines it, and experiences the sensory contact with the physical item he predicted he would receive. This feedback closes the loop. The viewer has perceived the future moment of feedback, and the future moment has now arrived as predicted. Every successful ARV protocol requires every step to be executed cleanly. The contamination of any single step compromises the entire prediction. The viewer must remain blind to the assignments. The judges must remain blind to the outcome. The feedback must be delivered on schedule with the actual outcome matching object. The discipline of the protocol is what allows the capacity to operate. Sloppy ARV produces sloppy results. Disciplined ARV produces the kind of 9 consecutive correct predictions Targ and Harari delivered in the autumn of 1982. A specific detail of the protocol deserves close attention. The time gap between the viewing session and the feedback delivery is critical to the success of the prediction. The viewer is perceiving across a finite window of temporal displacement. The longer the window, the more the signal degrades. The shorter the window, the cleaner the signal arrives. Targ and Harari used a 5-day window between the Wednesday session and the Monday close. This window has been validated by subsequent research as approximately the upper limit of reliable ARV prediction. Sessions targeting events more than 7 days in the future show progressively decreasing accuracy. Sessions targeting events within 48 hours show the highest reliability rates. Another critical detail is the emotional state of the viewer during the session. The successful sessions documented across the literature consistently show the viewer in a relaxed, receptive, low arousal state. Stress, anxiety, performance pressure, and excessive analytical engagement all interfere with the signal. The viewer who treats the session with the calm detachment of a scientific observation produces cleaner results than the viewer who approaches the session with emotional investment in the outcome. This requirement creates a paradox for financial application. The team has substantial money at stake. The pressure to perform is significant. The pressure interferes with the very state of consciousness required to perform. Targ and Harari addressed this by separating the viewer entirely from the financial dimension of the work. Harari was paid a salary regardless of the outcomes. He had no exposure to the trades themselves. His role was to describe whatever he perceived, without concern for what the descriptions might mean in financial terms. The structural separation preserved the receptive state required for the signal to arrive. Schwartz refined the technique further across the years following the original Alexandria project. His refined version is called the Mobius Consensus Protocol, abbreviated MCP. The Consensus Protocol addresses a fundamental limitation of the single viewer ARV session. Even a highly trained individual viewer produces occasional misses. The misses are unpredictable in advance. A protocol that depends on a single viewer therefore carries irreducible variance in its reliability. The Consensus Protocol solves this through redundancy. Rather than using one viewer for one prediction, the MCP uses multiple viewers, each working independently, each producing their own description of the future feedback object, each evaluated by independent judges. The individual descriptions are compared. Where the descriptions converge across multiple viewers toward the same pre-assigned object, the prediction is treated as high confidence. Where the descriptions diverge or fail to converge clearly, the prediction is treated as low confidence and the team withholds action. The Mobius Consensus Protocol transforms associative remote viewing from a single viewer instrument with statistical variance into a multi-viewer instrument with a reliability confidence rating built into every prediction. The team only acts on high convergence predictions. Low convergence predictions are documented for research purposes but produce no financial exposure. Schwartz used the consensus protocol across his archaeological work, his financial applications, and his ongoing research into precognitive perception of future events. The consensus methodology became the operational standard for serious applied remote viewing across the field. A modern continuation of this work is the Applied Precognition project, established by Marty Rosenblatt and several colleagues in the years following the public termination of Stargate. The APP operates as an open research community of practitioners applying ARV to financial markets, sports outcomes, and general future event predictions. The community runs continuous experiments, documents results, refines techniques, and trains new practitioners in the protocols developed by the original SRI and Mobius researchers. Greg Kolodziejzyk, a Canadian engineer and member of the APP community, conducted the most extensive personal documentation of ARV results ever recorded. Across 13 consecutive years, he performed 5,677 individual trials targeting various financial markets, sports events, and general future events. The aggregate results across the 13 years showed statistically significant accuracy substantially above chance. The documented record stands as the most rigorous single practitioner demonstration of associative remote viewing reliability ever produced. The conclusion from 40 years of continuous applied research across multiple independent teams is consistent. Associative remote viewing works. The protocol produces measurable, above-chance results when executed with discipline. Financial returns are achievable for teams willing to undertake the rigorous work the protocol requires. Beyond the silver futures market, the documented applications of remote viewing to financial and material targets extend across several other categories. Each category deserves brief examination. The first category is the location of physical objects of value. Remote viewing has been applied with documented success to the location of buried treasure, sunken ships, lost artifacts, and hidden caches of precious metals. Schwartz's Mobius Society applied the technique to the search for the lost ships of Christopher Columbus through what was called the Caravel Project. The Deep Quest submarine experiment used remote viewing to locate a previously unknown 19th century wreck off the California coast, which was subsequently confirmed by submersible inspection. Multiple private treasure hunting expeditions have used remote viewers across the past 4 decades, with mixed but documented results. The second category is the prediction of sports outcomes. Sporting events provide an ideal target for ARV research because they have discrete binary outcomes, verifiable results, and regulated betting markets that allow predictions to be monetized. The Applied Precognition project has run continuous trials on sports outcomes for over a decade. Several smaller teams have applied ARV to horse racing, professional football outcomes, and prize fights. The results have been variable, but documented above-chance performance has been recorded in multiple independent trials. The third category is the prediction of lottery outcomes. This is the most popular and the least successful application of remote viewing methodology. The number of possible outcomes in most lottery games is too large for the binary target structure of the standard ARV. Attempts have been made to break the problem, with each digit treated as a separate 10 outcome ARV session. The results have been suggestive but inconsistent. The lottery target appears to lie at the edge of what the current methodology can reliably handle, though perhaps someday we'll figure that out. The fourth category is the prediction of broader market movements. Several researchers have attempted to apply ARV to stock indices, currency pairs, and commodity markets beyond silver futures. The German DAX index has been the subject of a published academic study showing above-chance prediction across 48 valid trials. Individual stock predictions have been attempted with mixed results. The general finding is that broad index movements and major commodity contracts respond reasonably well to ARV protocols, while individual stock predictions have shown less reliable accuracy. The fifth category is the location of hidden criminal assets, missing persons, and stolen property. This category overlaps with law enforcement applications of remote viewing that have continued in various jurisdictions across the decades since the public termination of Stargate. The financial dimension of this application involves the recovery of stolen valuables, the identification of hidden bank accounts, and the location of assets that have been moved to evade taxation or seizure. Public documentation in this category is limited because the work is often confidential. Private documentation suggests the methodology continues to be applied by individual investigators with results that justify the continued application. The combined picture across these 5 categories is consistent. Remote viewing methodology can be applied to financial and material targets. The applications produce above-chance results when the methodology is disciplined. The applications fail when the methodology is sloppy. The serious practitioner who develops the underlying capacity gains access to a tool no conventional intelligence framework has the structure to replicate. Pause now and consider an obvious question. If the methodology works, if the trades documented in 1982 are real, if silver future contracts predicted 9 consecutive Mondays in succession over $100,000 in verified profits, why has the technique failed to become the foundation of an entire applied industry across the past 40 years? Several reasons combine to explain the absence. First is that the methodology requires trained operators. Casual users with no training fail to produce reliable results. The training takes years. The discipline of the protocols resists casual application. The number of operators capable of running clean sessions at high accuracy across sustained periods has remained across the entire 40-year window small. The second reason is that the methodology degrades when the same operators run too many sessions on the same target. Targ and Harari completed 9 successful silver futures predictions in 1982. They attempted to repeat the experiment in 1983 with the same protocol and the same operators. The 1983 attempt failed on the first 2 trials, and the team stopped trading. The degradation pattern has been observed repeatedly across the literature. Successful streaks happen, successful streaks end. The methodology resists indefinite extension by any single team. The third reason is that the financial industry, the academic establishment, and the mainstream media have collectively maintained a posture of dismissal toward the entire field of parapsychological research across the entire window in which the work has been conducted. The successful trades have been published in the academic literature and reported in trade press outlets, including the Wall Street Journal, coverage of the original Targ and Harari success. The reports were treated as curiosities rather than as the foundation of a new financial methodology. The institutional resistance has been consistent enough across decades to keep the methodology marginalized despite documented results. The fourth reason is that the people who developed the methodology have generally been more interested in consciousness research implications than in the financial applications. Schwartz spent his career on archaeology and consciousness research. Targ continued researching remote viewing as a phenomenon rather than as a money-making tool. Puthoff used his financial proceeds to fund a school rather than to scale a hedge fund. The original researchers carried different priorities than the priorities required to build a financial empire from the methodology. The fifth reason is that the methodology, when scaled, attracts the attention of regulatory bodies, intelligence agencies, and financial industry actors with reasons to suppress the practical application. A team that consistently predicts silver futures across decades would eventually attract questions from the Commodity Futures Trading Commission, the Securities and Exchange Commission, and potentially from intelligence services that retain a continuing interest in the methodology. The serious practitioners have in many cases deliberately kept their work small to avoid this attention. The combined results of these 5 factors is that the methodology has continued operating quietly in small communities of practitioners across the 40 years since the original 1982 success. The methodology has yet to scale and has yet to enter the financial industry, and it remains accessible to anyone willing to undertake the work the methodology requires. The closing question is a practical one. Given everything covered, what can you actually do with this information? 3 paths are open to the serious listener. First path is the development of personal capacity. The remote viewing methodology can be learned by ordinary practitioners. Training programs exist taught by veterans of the original Stargate program and by their students. Joe McMoneagle, Lynn Buchanan, Paul Smith, and several other original viewers have run public training courses across the decades since the program's termination. Schwartz's Opening to the Infinite curriculum has been adopted as the standard introductory program in the field. The Applied Precognition project runs continuous training for ARV practitioners. The serious student willing to commit 2 to 4 years of consistent practice can develop reliable, above-chance performance in his own nervous system. The second path is the application of the underlying principles to manifestation work rather than to direct prediction. The capacity that makes remote viewing possible is the same capacity that makes serious manifestation work succeed. The trained viewer accesses non-local information across time and space. The trained manifester projects intention across time and space and pulls the desired outcome into present tense reality. Both operations work because consciousness has the structure that allows them. The person who fails to become a trained remote viewer can still use the principles documented across the program to deepen their own manifestation discipline. The visualization holds longer, the intention carries further, the synchronicities increase in frequency, the outcomes arrive with greater reliability. The capacity that powers professional remote viewing powers every serious manifesting practice the broader spiritual tradition has ever documented. The third path is the deeper recognition the entire program has been pointing toward across its existence. The phenomenon the program documented across 23 years was that consciousness operates non-locally. The mind has access to information about distant locations, hidden objects, and future events through channels conventional physics has yet to map, including the future self. The boundary between the personal self and the wider field of awareness is more permeable than the materialist worldview has been claiming. The implications of this single observation, taken seriously, transform your entire relationship with reality. The trained remote viewer is operating from this recognition. The successful manifester is operating from the same recognition. The person who is entering deep states of awareness is also operating from this same recognition. The capacity Targ and Harari deployed across those silver trades in 1982 is the same capacity that every tradition has been pointing toward for 3,000 years. The methodology is a specific application of a wider underlying truth. The truth is that you have access. The truth is that the access has been available the entire time. The truth is that the trained discipline of the methodology is the path through which the access becomes reliable enough to operate as a working tool inside your daily life. Begin where the original viewers began. Sit in a quiet room, close your eyes, allow the surface mind to settle, direct your attention toward a target you have no ordinary access to. Hold the attention there. Allow whatever impressions arise to register without interference from your conscious analysis. Record what you have received. Compare the record against the actual target when the verification becomes available. Across the months of consistent practice, the impressions become more accurate. The signal-to-noise ratio improves. The capacity that operated inside Keith Harari in that small office in Menlo Park in November of 1982 begins to operate inside you, across whatever target you have selected. The methodology is documented, the capacity is real, and the training is available. The silver trades of 1982 happened. The $120,000 was real. The 9 consecutive predictions were verified. The methodology that produced them remains operational for anyone willing to undertake the work the methodology requires. The story has been hidden in plain sight inside the declassified CIA archives for over 30 years. The information is yours now. What you do with it is the work that begins on the other side of this video. Consider before closing the magnitude of what has been demonstrated. A small team of researchers operating with a methodology developed inside the CIA, working from a small office in Northern California, used the trained perception of a single human nervous system to predict the direction of a major commodities market across 9 consecutive weeks. The predictions were verified by actual market closes. The trades produced over $100,000 in real profit. The methodology was documented in the literature. The story has been available for 40 years. No one knows the story exists. The reasons for the obscurity have been examined. They have nothing to do with the methodology failing. The methodology worked. The reasons have everything to do with cultural, institutional, and structural barriers that keep things like remote viewing out of the mainstream. Behind those barriers, the methodology has continued operating. Trained practitioners have continued running sessions across the decades since 1982. Financial returns have continued accumulating in the hands of a disciplined group of teams. The Applied Precognition Project continues its work. Greg Kolodziejzyk's 13-year record stands as ongoing demonstration that single practitioner remote viewing can produce reliable, above-chance results across sustained periods. So this is real. The path is open. What separates you who develop the capacity from the one who fails to develop it is the same factor that has separated the trained from the untrained across every era of recorded human history: the willingness to undertake the work, the discipline of consistent daily practice, the refusal to be discouraged by the early sessions that produce more noise than signal, the patience to allow the signal to clarify across weeks, months, or even years. The CIA spent 23 years and an estimated $20 million documenting that this capacity exists. The agency closed the program in 1995. The capacity remained accessible inside every nervous system the program had ever studied. The training is available. It's all in the public. The veteran viewers continue teaching. The community of practitioners continue growing. You can begin tomorrow morning. The first session takes just 30 minutes. The early sessions will produce noisy results. The disciplined continuation of this practice across the months could lead to riches in your life. The remainder of the work is work you choose to undertake if that's what you want to do, but it is available to us. I believe that we're in a time where we will be better remote viewers. Consciousness is closer to the Akashic. The veil is being lifted, and more it will become easier for you to remote view. And eventually somebody's going to remote view a lottery number. And eventually multiple people are going to do it at the same time. And eventually everybody's going to know about it. And it's available to you now. Begin to sense into your future self. Use the future self as your conduit into sensing into your future. And then everything begins to change. Something we've documented on the channel through what I take people through in events where people have real experiences, where they experience their future, memories of their future, and they apply what they remember as investments, in starting businesses, and so much more. I want to invite you to join the Skool Community that I have. The link is in the description. We do group sessions on a regular basis. I have a session on remote viewing, a session on focusing the attention. If you want to use these skills, I have trainings in my community to work on that very thing. You can find the link in the description at www.skool.com/reality revolution. Skool is spelled Skool. Sending all my light and love to everyone, and welcome to the Reality Revolution. There's a version of your life where everything you've been reaching for arrives, where the money flows, where love opens, where your body heals, where every step carries the frequency of the self you were always meant to be. That life exists, and the path to it has been 8 years in the making. This July, the Reality Revolution comes home to Anaheim. 3 full days of teaching, meditation, and timeline activation. 9 complete sessions designed to move you from the life you're living to the life that is waiting. Activate your pineal gland. Meet your higher self. Quantum jump into your greatest timeline. Enter the bliss body healing state. Step into the flow of large sums of money. Open fully to love. Shift into a higher density new earth. Friday night, the community celebrates together. Saturday evening, a special appearance from Daryl Anka. And by Sunday evening, you walk out as the version of yourself your future self has been waiting for.
I knew I had to be in the room because it's different from like listening to the meditation videos online.
It was really getting into yourself and how you feel and your timelines.
It's time at the event, and it really is. It's wonderful. So, I would highly recommend to anyone, if you get the opportunity to do it, absolutely do it. It really is amazing.
The Reality Revolution live in Anaheim, July 24th, 25th, and 26th at the Hilton Anaheim. 3 days that will change the trajectory of your life. Early bird pricing is available now. Claim your seat at www.brianscottlive.com/Anaheim.